Welcome to the Mindful Green podcast, where we'll be diving into mindfulness applied to environmentalism and education. This is Shine Lee, and I'm a senior at the Hotchkiss School.
And I'm Rineharticus. I'm a faculty member at the Hotchkiss School. I teach environmental science and biology and agroecology.
Awesome. And you also work at the farm a bit too, right?
Yeah, constantly. I'm always at the farm. I work there for feet and then for my research. I'm looking at altering phosphorus uptake in plants using different mycological associations. Fungus, mushrooms, good stuff.
All right. Yeah, so this podcast is part of an independent study I'm doing on mindfulness in environmentalism and pedagogy education. And through it, I'm hoping to think of ways in which not just Hotchkiss, but secondary education in general can integrate mindfulness into their curriculum.
And I'm here to support and guide and also really learn from Shine through his journey, kind of connecting with him and what he's learning about.
Yeah, and you also have some background on mindfulness and meditation.
Sure, about 26 years of attempting to incorporate mindfulness and presence in my everyday and studying Buddhist traditions as well as comparative religion. That started in college.
Yeah, and also actually in your classrooms too, you bring in some mindfulness components there.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I try to make sure that we're thinking about where we are in the present moment and making the connections biologically. In fact, I wrote a whole diatribe last night to send to our own administration thinking about why we need mindfulness in a residential life education at Hotchkiss. There's been some research done that says that 4 deep breaths actually can reduce cortisol, which is the stress hormone, by up to 20%. So I try really hard to remember to help students center before they sit down to take an assessment when a little bit of anxiety is good, but too much anxiety is just way too much. And so trying to help them find successful ways to incorporate it. And it doesn't have to be, sitting in the floor with large meditation cushions and incense burning, but that really mindfulness can be really part of everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chime, why don't you talk a little bit about your inspiration for the podcast and your project on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I am very, very passionate in the topic of consumerism, or more broadly, human consumption. So far, I've looked at the issue through many different lenses, like philosophy, Buddhism, our social critiques, environmental studies, economics, and all this research has led me to think about the idea of mindful consumption. A lot of the problems that you can see in modern consumption or consumerism is the fact that it's very habitual and instinctive. Most importantly, I think it's unethical. The natural world is treated as just a commodity that we can consume or advertise, even though it supports every single person on the planet. Even more, due to trends in urbanism and discriminatory legislation, most, if not all, communities of color are disproportionately affected by environmental issues like climate change, which is then exacerbated furthermore by consumerism. So at the heart of the issue is this idea that we, as a collective society, have become disconnected from nature, and furthermore, even ourselves. This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is all about returning to yourself. It's about becoming aware and attentive. With the digital sphere of communication, it's definitely getting harder and harder to fully immerse yourself in the here and now.
I think there's so much about that little box in our hand, and it's only been, maybe 13 years? I think 13 or 14 years since it really has become standard for everybody to have this little black mirror in their hand that keeps them from really connecting with the outside world around them. I read an article last night that said that, or actually as a professor I heard on a podcast, he was talking about just 15 minutes in nature a day, because when you're outside, your body automatically recognizes through proprioception and stuff that you could be attacked at any minute. Your body actually automatically amps up your immune system response, or kind of sets it on alert. And just being outside for 15 minutes actually can help you age slower.
Wow.
So imagine being outside and mindful of the world around you and how much your body kind of craves that, because we were never meant to be indoors staring at black screens. But it's interesting. So you keep giving us this word mindfulness around. It seems like that has to do with being present. But what exactly are you talking about? How would you define it?
Yeah, so at its very core, the direct translation of mindfulness from Pali, the language that the Buddhist texts were written down, is just to be aware. Mindfulness is really secular. John Kabat-Zinn defines it. Mindfulness is basically paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. Mindfulness is that thing that arises when you pay attention on purpose.
That's a really good way of describing it, especially the non-judgmentally part.
Right.
Sometimes that's maybe the hardest thing to achieve.
Our biggest obstacle could be just simply our emotions and our thoughts, or as you simply sort of accept, I guess passively, but accept the emotions and thoughts that arise.
Right.
Mindfulness deals a lot with becoming skilled at intentionally doing nothing as opposed to doing something. As I'm sure many of our listeners are experiencing right now, our minds are very distracted easily. We're too distracted with items, consumption, social media, our screens, and even just plain emotions to really be present in the world in which we live. But with mindfulness, we're trying to center ourselves, to not simply just be lost in thought. Instead, we're trying to learn how to be present in the here and now. Of course, we'll continue to define and redefine mindfulness, but I think it's a good place to stop for today.
Absolutely. That's great.
I hope this served as a nice introduction to what this podcast is. And with that, thank you for listening.
Thanks.